Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to a brand new edition of the Edgy live stream. I am Edgy Tim and welcome you aboard for the next hour. We are going to talk some high school football. We're going to have a handful of guests, we hope. They are trying feverishly to connect as we speak. So hopefully we will be able to be connected to a couple of guests tonight. And as always, the boys are on hand. Certainly the one, the only, the gentleman, I guess if you're watching the screen to your right, my left, I don't know what it is anymore. Coach Joe. Hi, Coach Joe.
Hello, boys.
And the bottom square, if you will. You know him as Dave Dwyer from WJOL. Tonight he will be known simply as Bucket Hat. Hello, Bucket Hat.
Ready to roll.
Yeah, we are. And we are hoping to be joined by George Czart, head coach of Lockport. George is feverishly trying to connect right now, not having a lot of success. But as Joe, we mentioned, he does have a house full of young ladies that I'm sure are very tech savvy.
I'll guarantee they are.
So we are hoping we will be able to figure that out. So looking forward to bringing in George. And then a little bit later in the show, the one, the only, the new head coach of the Havana Ducks.
Oh, I
and
know
our
that.
small school football expert, Matt Leng, will join us. Joe, always one of your favorites.
Oh, he's my guy. I love talking to him. Well, of course, I didn't have a chance this year talking to him downstate. Great guy. I really enjoy talking to him.
Yep. Dewey, we're Savannah and not Cuba.
In between Peoria, Macomb, and Lincoln.
Very good. Look at you. I knew you knew your territories.
That's right.
Very good. Very good. So, again, we will have Matt Leng join us. And, again, George Czart is feverishly trying to connect and not having much luck. So, we will continue.
He said he's backstage.
It does, but it says the device is not connected. So, for whatever reason, he's not being able to connect. So, we'll keep my eye on my phone. Hopefully, I'll hear back from him. Oh, wait, George doesn't do a skell, does he? I don't think he does a sell, so I'm not going to hear back from him.
No, you're not.
We have a cancellation this week.
Yes, go ahead, Dewey.
Yeah.
University of St. Francis, I believe, was canceled.
Yeah, that was I believe it was rescheduled at first, correct?
Yes.
I think they canceled originally, rescheduled it. Now they've canceled the game. So I believe, is it Ambrose this week?
Yes, Saturday.
Yep.
I think they're playing Ambrose this week. So, again, University of St. Francis, unfortunately, I already had one cancellation. A bit of business we wanted to get to, guys. Wanted to talk to, hey, someone's calling. I wonder who this could be. Joe, Dewey, the show's all yours.
You know, David, last week we didn't mention about Coach Douglas being the assistant coach in the Hall of Fame and stuff. And I know we kid about, especially on the air, you don't want to be an offensive lineman at Joliet Catholic missing an assignment and having Coach Douglas waiting for you on the sideline with that stare and that growl. But I had the pleasure of, coaching, as you know, at Joliet Catholic, coaching football in the varsity for 5 years. And Dave is one of the best offensive line coaches that I've ever worked with, Seth being the other one. Again, at both of those schools, outstanding offensive lineman coaches, and Dave is right in that category with Seth. And it's an honor that's overdue, in my opinion. He is one of the, as I said, one of the better offensive line coaches in the state of Illinois.
No, without a doubt. Coach Douglas, taught me back on 26 Broadway. Go way back with Dave, one of the best, and a very much deserved honor. Everything you said, you hit the nail on the head.
And Coach Bitto was elected too. And I know you know him a little better than I do, but I know he was at Carmel Mundaline and did a great job there. And I know a guy that is well deserved too of the honor.
Coach Bitto was always gracious. As you know, that's one of the long trips, especially on a Friday afternoon, getting up there in the Great North. And he was always more than gracious with us.
Since Edgy, I'm going to tell a quick story. I think it was, I don't know if it wasn't Mike Allstott's. It was after Mike graduated. We're on a bus, and you know how the Joliet Catholic bus was at those times. Um,
yeah.
We were on our way up, and of course, Coach Douglas is driving the bus, and we get off at 294 up there by Lamb's Farm or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, the bus just quits. And of course, a few choice words were said, and so Dave stopped, turns the bus. Of course, it wasn't working. Just shut off the ignition. Grabs a wire. I am not kidding you here. A wire brush from underneath his seat. Opens up the hood and yells to me, "All right, try it now." He sparked the battery with the wire brush over to the other terminal, and the bus started. I go, "What are you doing?" He says, "I wouldn't suggest anybody else doing that except me." And I was scared to death. The kids on the bus are dying laughing because you could literally see the spark, the arc of electricity in between the hood and the windshield going across to the other terminal. And sure enough, the bus started. He knew that bus. They should have just donated that bus to him because it had the hole in the floor at one time and all this stuff. But when he did that going up the Carmel Munn line, I'll never forget that as long as I live. That's one of Coach Douglas' stories.
All right, gentlemen, we have an update here from Headquarters Central. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to connect with George Czart tonight, having a little technical problem, unfortunately, on his side. And so we will try to get George back again for another week. But definitely didn't want to interrupt the Coach Douglas stories for sure. And I just wanted to add my congratulations to Coach Douglas for being named the Illinois High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame. And again, there were some other names that I've gotten to know over the years. Did you guys mention Andy Biddle by chance? So Andy Biddle gets in as well. Definitely highly deserving. John Hart, who coached at Huntley for a while and coached at Downstate Mount Carmel, is in. Jeff Harris from New Berlin, longtime coach, gets in. Josh Joseph from Aurora Foresight guys, probably one of the most successful public 1A, 2A programs, certainly in the middle of the south part of the state. You know, they seem like they're a traditional power every year. And then Brian Hazlitt from Streeter and Prairie Central, who's been at this a long time as well. Bill Modelski out of Conant, who was a long-time coach, I think multi-sport coach at Conant, if I'm not mistaken. Darren Peach, who coached at Mount Carmel, Illinois. Dewey, where's Mount Carmel, Illinois?
That's downstate as well.
No kidding.
You didn't get specific with it, but okay. We'll accept that answer.
It's south of me anyway.
Yeah, it definitely is south. And then obviously Dave Douglas and also Dave Jacobs, longtime coach, gets the Ray Elliott Award. So, just congratulations to those guys. So, by the way, if you want to take part in the show, be a part, have any thoughts or comments, we would love to hear from you. You got the text box there in the chat box. Just plug in whatever questions you have, whether you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, or maybe just caught the link I put out on Twitter. You can watch us there as well. Would love to hear from you guys. So as far as news this week, well, besides the fact that we got, about 2.5 feet of snow on the ground.
Man. Yes.
And today was 19, and it felt like warm out.
Yes.
It's crazy. Joe, one of the questions I was going to ask George Czart is, have they removed the snow from their field yet?
You know, I was going to mention that. I wonder if schools are starting to even think about that, because with football coming up, you're going to want to get the snow off the field. That's for sure.
Yeah. I actually I did an interview today with Chris Schremp from Prairie Ridge. And, that conference is notorious for grass fields. Literally, with the exception, I think, of Huntley and it might just be Huntley. Everyone else up there is grass. So Cary Grove, Cary Grove, Prairie Ridge, all those schools, the Crystal Lake schools, they're all grass. So he actually said that, yes, the districts had a plan that they had started today, starting to, go through and start removing them on those fields. Now, whether we get another foot of snow or whatever is going to be a whole other issue. But, Joe, what a mess.
You got to be careful, with the grass fields. You don't want to get, I don't know how they're going to do it other than a plow, because it's so deep. You got to be careful that you don't dig the grass up too. They did that at Providence one year before I went back there. for a playoff game against Richards, and they literally ripped up the field. And the next year they put the sod in. And then when I was Seth's assistant AD one year, I think I told the story before. It snowed on a Sunday, and I come into school on Monday, and Seth turns to me and goes, "Well, it's your job to get the snow off the field." I go, "How am I going to do that?" He said, "Well, that's up to you." You don't think about things, so I started calling around, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. I called Lincoln Way Central and talked to their head maintenance guy, and that was before they had, I think, turf on the field. I think it was before they had turf, and he says, "Think about it." He says, "Depending upon, there's too much snow on the field now, they're going to have to plow some." But he said, if you get an inch or two, he says, "Think about it." He says, "All you got to do is compress the snow, get the air out of it. And if the sun's out, it'll melt." And so I was out there before the sun was up. I was out there with a roller on the back of the Seth's golf cart. I did the entire field. Seth saw me out there, came out, started laughing. He said, I said, "Just wait. By noon, every speck of snow was off the field." He couldn't believe it either. And the field was pretty dry for the playoff game on Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least, and just the temperatures, because I mean, let's face it. What would you have taken kids out this week so far?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, that's going to be the big thing. Now with basketball going, and maybe I don't know if any other sports are going. Football teams are going to have to take that 9 o'clock slot at night for a couple hours, I would imagine. I mean, that's the only free time you're going to have, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's another question that I don't think anybody's thought of, but that's why I'm here.
That's why the bucket hat's here.
That's right. Why. So these turfs are generally a 10-year situation for them when these schools get them. How much damage is going to be done to these turfs this spring with talking snow removal, everything else, this and that?
Yeah, that's even, you got to be even more careful when it comes to that. And it's funny you mentioned that. There was a report today, Missouri State down in Cape Girardeau. They're supposed to start playing. It's either this weekend or next weekend. The problem is they've got like a layer of ice underneath the snow. So they're trying to deal with, okay, we can get the snow off the field. There's no way they can get ice off the field without damaging it.
No.
So I think they're hoping for a Joe Rodeghero miracle where they can get the snow off and then leave that ice, and then hopefully they get a little bit of a warm up and could start melting it. But yeah, there's all kinds of issues that they're going to run into.
And Ed, you mentioned it last week when we were on about the St. Francis St. Xavier game, about seeing the snow on the sidelines. There's going to be a ton of snow on the sidelines. Oh yeah, because there was a lot of snow on those fields. I'm looking at our drive. Just look at our drive.
I was just going to say, I got nowhere to put it anymore.
No, I know it's crazy. My snowblower can only blow it so high now. I mean, you got to get it over. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I know. So, just one of the many issues. And look, we talked about this with the coaches, and I want to get into Lockport a little bit because I told George we talked about the Porters a little bit, but it's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those springs, guys, where there are going to be cancellations. There's going to be postponements. You know, Dewey, you're gonna get all geared up and you don't bring the gear. Joe always has to bring the gear, so Joe's gonna have to bring the gear, and you're gonna be halfway on your way to a game, and it's gonna get postponed or something like that's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen, so it's not gonna go off without any hitches. There's gonna be hiccups. You just hope you can get a majority of the games in, and these kids can play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're right. Because you can't, again, we talked about the cancellation yesterday, and you're going to have those. I mean, it's going to snow some more, and it doesn't look like it's going to get warm anytime soon either. So, whether it's COVID or whether it's, I think there's going to be more weather conditions than COVID, I would hope. But again, it is, you're right, Edge. It's just going to happen.
Well, Bucket? I think too, if you look at it, I've been a proponent of this, and I think it's going to happen more than people want to. some of these Friday night scheduled games, for one reason or another, weather or whatever, after further review, I think we're going to have a lot more Saturday football than we think.
It's a good point, and I'm really surprised, guys, honestly. Now, just looking at, and again, this is a question I was going to ask George. Looking at Lockport's schedule, everything's for Friday night. Everything's scheduled for Friday. Now, I'm sure, Joe, they've got Saturday as a fallback date, I would imagine. I don't know if there'd be any other conflict scheduling-wise. But, Dewey, I'm kind of with you, especially those first couple weeks. I mean, if it's anything remotely close to what the temperatures are right now, you're going to move to Saturday day. I think.
Yeah, again, like you said, it was 19 degrees today. It felt real warm, and the temperatures at night are, from 5 above to 5 below. I mean, or even, and you get a little bit of wind at night. That wind chill is going to be unbelievable, unbelievable at night.
I know, and I am so looking forward to hearing you guys complain and moan on the radio all spring season about the weather inside your warm booth. So
it'll be warm wherever we are.
Yeah, I know.
Sure it will. I'm sure it will. Dewey's already got the gas generator all lined up.
Yeah, I was actually sweating in the booth a couple of years ago. It was so warm in there. That's for sure.
Nice. A little bit of news to get to, and that's why I'm wearing my WJOL hat tonight. Joe, believe it or not, or like it or not, we are going to be back on the air starting March 18th for Pigskin Preview on Thursday nights. So
terrific.
Just found that out. So our first show will be that night before the first games on Thursday. Again, looking at a 2-hour show. And as always, we could not get this done without our sponsors, led by our State Farm agents, Kevin Malloy in New Lenox and John Wright in Joliet, Joe.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Those are two great sponsors. And I'm sure maybe a couple of the other ones will join suit once they find out that we're going back on the air. And
the Malloy posse.
The Pigskin posse.
Yep.
Yes. We'll get that involved again. But again, Kevin and John have been great to us and all our sponsors over the years, for sure.
Yeah. And Dewey, as you know, I know a schedule's in the works and things are starting to come together. So it looks like you guys are going to have some games to do as well. So just very, very excited for that. By the way, guys, Matt Leng's already in the waiting room waiting to go. So whoever had 647,
that was me.
Whoever had 647 on the pool is the winner tonight. So we'll get to Matt. We'll get to Matt in a little bit. I do want to talk about Lockport, Dewey. And, I think, and again, there's obviously a ton of teams that are disappointed we didn't have a 2020 season, guys. But I got to think George and Lockport in particular, because you saw the progress they made last year. I mean, they really made a big jump last year from where they were under George. Ton of starters back. 6 back on offense, 8 or 9 back on defense. Some really good young talent as well that I've been able to see. Guys, this team, I think in the spring has a chance. And Dewey, I'll start with you. I think they have a chance to win 5 games possibly this year out of the six game schedule. I really do.
They could. They stepped it up. George has his handprints all over that program. Joe and I did the game against Lincoln Way Central last year. We were on the opposite side, which is actually a good vantage point. I'll say this much. Last season is the most energetic I've seen Porter football fans in a long time, and it was great to see.
Yeah, and Joe, you and I talked about this for a while now. There's no shortage of excitement for Porter football in that community. Even when they were struggling under Dan Starkey, Joe, they had numbers. They turned out, and even from a fan standpoint, Dewey, I think you were there. The opener they played Providence at the NIU a couple of years back.
Yeah,
they were coming off a terrible year, and that place was packed and loaded with Porter fans. So Joe, Lockport embraces, and we went out and did a coaches show out at Ron Coomer's place. We had great support. We had great community support. So it's there. It's just a matter of things coming together. And Joe, I really think George has got it to the point where, this spring could be big, and even leading into the fall could be big for the Porters.
Oh, without a doubt. And Dewey, I think they gave Providence all they could handle in that first half of that game up at NIU. And you're right, Edge. Growing up in Lockport and following Lockport, even though I was at the other two other Catholic schools in the area, there's a sense of pride there in Lockport for all their athletics. And all they needed was somebody to come in like George, a very, very good football coach. Not that the other guys weren't, but George has something extra that's hard to describe, where all they needed was to win a few games and get some momentum going and stuff. And I'm just hoping that and I know George will get those guys going. Momentum's a big key. And, having the season delayed for a while, then starting up again and stopping and starting, that was going to be my question to George as far as momentum. And I know they're excited about playing, but you got to have some momentum. And they definitely did have it at the end of the year. They really did. And George and his staff did an outstanding job with those kids. And the people in Lockport's got to be excited about this team.
Dewey, you've known George. You've covered George for a long time. What is it about him? How is he able to, this is what the third program or so where, it started when he got the Lincoln Way North and got them going right away. And he gets to Lockport and he gets them going right away. What is it about George and what he's able to get accomplished with a program?
He has what's called the it factor. From the minute he walks in the door, respect of everyone, adults, peers, kids, you name it. Joe, you've seen many coaches in your day, and he's one of a kind in that aspect, that instant credibility, and it spreads.
Yeah, he communicates. I mean, I've worked with George a little bit in his earlier days when he was at Providence. Communication is a big thing in coaching, as we all know. He communicates well with the kids. He knows when to chew their butts a little bit, but he's a teacher, and first and foremost. And he teaches not only in his classroom, but teaches the kids the game of football. And when you start believing in a guy that's the head guy, you're going to get more and more kids believing in what you want to get accomplished and what you want to get done. And George has done that. Now, he's not that way. We all know in the kitchen, he can't cook a lick, but on the football field, he can coach with the best of them for sure.
He'll argue with you on that last cooking point, I'm sure.
Well, that's Brett with the cereal, right? George is SpaghettiOs or something, or
we have the technology now. We can have that cooking show with the coaches. Be very easy to do. We could have a cook-off between George and Ernie and settle this damn thing once and for all. So we're going to do the drunk show. And then while we do the drunk show, we're going to have the cook-off show going on as well. And those guys can drink if they want. Totally welcome.
That might get them in trouble.
One thing I think about is George at Lockport, Z at East, and Coach Ivelo at Bolingbrook. Just those in particular. How do you play it this spring? And what I mean by that is, okay, you have these 6 games. If you have a lot of underclassmen to develop, are you leaning toward playing them more? How much are you loyal to your upperclassmen? I think that's going to be a tough balance.
Joe, I'll take it to start. Dewey, I think, and I've talked to a lot of coaches. I've been interviewing a lot of coaches around the state about it, and everyone is kind of said a little bit what you're alluding to, where, okay, we want to work some young kids in and get an idea. But first and foremost, guys, they want to win. And most importantly, they want the seniors to play. Maybe even kids that might not were expected to see a time. And I think of a school like East or Lockport where they've got big numbers, those ones and those twos guys, they are going to be as senior heavy as he can possibly get it. I guarantee you. So it's a good question. But I think that's probably, Joe, how you're going to see most programs handle it.
And I think you owe it to the seniors to give them the first opportunity if they're even with, let's say, a sophomore, so they can get themselves on tape. And I think every coach that we talked to, Edge and Dewey, they always talked about just getting some live action on tape that they can send to coaches if a young man doesn't have a scholarship yet. And I'm sure they're very aware of the kids who might not have one yet, that are going to be seniors, that are pretty decent players that college coaches don't know about. And this is where, in my opinion, guys like Joe Curry and Fem over at St. Xavier and these guys have an advantage, because a lot of these guys who might be real good football players that haven't really shown too much because they haven't been on tape can get on tape, and these coaches can see them. The lower level Division II, Division III, NAIA, whatever, can have a chance to see these kids and maybe get a big surprise, a top prize where they're really going to help that program.
Talking just recruiting real quickly, there was news. By the way, there's a little bit of breaking news. First of all, guys, I know you'll be disappointed to hear this, but Tim Tebow has retired from baseball.
Oh, darn.
I know. Dewey, I know you're probably hoping to add him on your roster here, a late ad 25-man, but Tebow will not be in Major League Baseball. He's retiring from baseball. Also, the NCAA decided today to extend the recruiting dead period through May 31st. So, again, you mentioned those underclassmen getting taped. It's going to be more so than ever, because the way things are going right now, it does not look like we're going to have a spring. Well, we're definitely not going to have a spring evaluation, and now we're probably most likely not going to have much in the summer. You're not going to get colleges hosting camps this summer. So, again, all this virtual recruiting and online stuff, it's going to play another big role, and it's incredibly disappointed for kids and parents out there when it comes to recruiting, because, guys, it's gotten that much harder. So
here's what I don't understand about this.
Yep.
And obviously what I do is run a waffle company for the United States. I'm hearing news every day of restrictions getting lifted. California, one of the toughest states, in 3 weeks, 25% indoor dining. Vegas, 50% by March 1st. So it's spreading throughout the country. I just don't understand why kids are being penalized with this going on in normal.
What I'm with you. I don't. And what I don't understand is kids on a college level are playing. They're getting through seasons. Football got through a season. Basketball's getting through a season. So we can have 30, 40,000 kids on campus, and we can send them all over to play games, but we don't want kids to make a visit to help them make their most important decision of their life. It's just ridiculous. And so we'll see, but that's again, it's a big, it's going to have a lot of impact on the recruiting side. So Lockport, we'll wrap it up, their schedule. So here's the schedule, as you can imagine, not soft at all. Someone better warm up Matt Leng in the bullpen. So he better,
he's ready already. I know him.
So they open at home at Flossmoor, host Sandburg, at Bolingbrook versus Lincoln Way East. Hey, there's a good 4 opening games. And then they finish with hosting Andrew and at Stag. Nothing easy again for the Porters guys, but I'm telling you right now, I think a key game for them is going to be week 3 at Bolingbrook.
Yes.
If they can beat the Raiders, maybe HF's a toss-up. Hopefully they wind up beating Sandburg. If they beat the Raiders there, I think they could win 5 games.
You could see it. I mean, they definitely have things going. And my curiosity with all this is going to be, normally we say, okay, after week 1, the biggest adjustments are made between week 1 and week 2. I'm curious to see what kind of quality football and adjustments we see in this situation.
Yeah, I think we all are. And again, it's what's the impact going to be of weather? Is that going to tie in? Yeah, but I'm just happy we're going to hopefully have something to see. So we got some comments. Joe Lapointe, who's been a loyal viewer, by the way, so we appreciate you, Joe. Does IHSA have standards regarding temperature or field conditions, or is it the AD coaches, superintendents? Joe, you want to take that one?
I think it's going to be, I think in baseball and spring sports there is, but basically it's the AD and the coaches, I think, is going to have to make the decisions here. And I think with the situations we're in today with the COVID stuff, it's going to rely on the AD and coaches to see what they want to do. I think the state's kind of going to wash their hands of this, and it's going to be up to the coaches.
There is no cold acclimation rule. There is for summer for football. There's a heat
Yes.
There is nothing on the books for winter. So to answer your question, Joe, there's nothing standard-wise that's written by the eye to say when it comes to temperature. So bundle up, buttercups. Time to go outside and play some football.
That's right. You wanted it, you got it.
Yeah, Dave Dwyer. Put an extra layer on and go sit up in that booth, will you? And
it'll be warm.
Wouldn't be a show without Jeff DeGraw chiming in, winning is fun. Gee, thanks, Jeff. That was pretty awesome. And it will carry over to the fall. No, it's a good point, though. I agree.
Yeah.
In a school like Lockport, guys, I think is a prime example where if they have that 4 or 5 win season in the spring, it's you can see momentum carrying through.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
I agree with Jeff.
So again, appreciate everybody chiming in. All right, we've kept this guy at bay long enough. I think it's time we go to him. What do you guys think? Should we go to him?
Yeah, he's probably bouncing off the walls.
He is. And we are thrilled to bring in our friend, Matt Leng, who, besides being a handsome looking guy, he's a guy that would have benefited from video from the beginning of all this.
Yes.
Out of all of us, he's the guy. We could have gotten him even more dates than he already gets. Hi, Matt.
You guys are crazy, man. How's it going? How we doing?
We're good. By the way,
Matt.
I'll immediately start with congratulations on getting the Havana job. And I already love the logo. I already love it.
Well, I'm really happy, guys. I'm very fortunate, blessed. Just kind of where I'm at in my life and my DNA. The football guys have kind of brought me back to be in a position where I'm in charge of a 1A football program, and it's just really neat and fun and interesting. But at the same time, I'm starting off in the craziest time ever.
Yeah.
This is just crazy what we're dealing with as a nation, and especially the state of Illinois. And so, but regardless of all that, I'm here, and I am now the official duck. So there you go, guys.
You are the lead duck.
Yes.
You, as you mentioned, you've gone through this. It's been absolutely crazy. Knowing you've probably had about 30 to 40 different ways to attack this, had to tear them up and start over again. Where are you at with everything now? Have you guys kind of started contact days? And again, you're at a 1A, 2A size school, so I know you've got multiple sport athletes, and you have to have multiple sport athletes in your school. So how are you managing that so far?
Well, it was a pretty good transition. By the time I moved down here at the end of June, July, things were starting to kind of tumble and rumble in terms of the whole pandemic. And then once we started school, it was kind of crazy. And I didn't do a lot of contact days with my kids. We did some stuff probably in week, I don't know, like 7 or 8. I just did some contact days. But now, as we kind of got into this new year and everything, basketball is taking its time, and you hit the nail on the head there, Edge. I mean, we got kids that are, 2-3 sport athletes. We're sharing kids, and that relationship that you have with your AD or your principal, your basketball coach, it's imperative. It's important in the 1A small schools. And so, right now we got kids playing basketball. We're lucky in this small school of Havana that we have athletic PE. So we have a lot of kids that are weightlifting, and it's been crucial. It's been important. The bodies are getting stronger. They're getting bigger. Freshmen are now getting developed into that sophomore body, and sophomores to juniors and juniors to seniors. So, we're on our way. We've got some things planned here for the end of the month in terms of talking to our kids. And then, February is such a goofy month anyway. It's so short. I mean, boom, before you know it, next week you're there, and then it's like next week I got practice.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And but we're going to be fine, and it's going to be a great thing.
Joe?
Matt, what type of situation is down there in Havana as far as school is concerned? Are you guys full tilt? Are you 50-50 hybrid, or how is it with that? And then my next question would be just communication with just, let's say the guys who just play football? Is that, you see the kids at school to talk to them, or do you have to, Zoom, do a Google Meet with them, or how do you go about doing that?
We've been very lucky and fortunate. We're here in Mason County. It's on the western side of the state. It's right over here by Macomb and Peoria. We've had school, except for we had a little bit of a setback in the first part of school. We had about a week off because we had to do some, quarantines and stuff like that. But for the most part, we've had school every day. We have about 280 kids. So we gave our kids the option, either they could be a remote learner or come to school. So out of 280 kids, we had about 70 kids that wanted to be a remote learner. Well, they realized remote learning is not that much fun. And so they came back. We're having school every day. We've had school from 8 to 2. We've had no issues. Our rates in Mason County are pretty low. I talk to my kids on a consistent basis. I just talked to some kids just literally about an hour ago in the basketball gym because they're getting ready to play a basketball game. My lines of communication are open to kids, most importantly to the parents. And so we just, everything's going fairly smooth. We haven't had to do a lot of Zoom stuff because I see them every day. But everything's going to be good. I mean, next week I'm going to have a meeting with my freshmen and sophomores. And then, like I said, before you know it, we start into football in the month of March. And, we're going to be like everybody. It's going to be new. It's going to be uncharted waters, and you just get after it and do the best you can.
It's so much better seeing them live, isn't it?
Sure. No, it absolutely is. And I'm lucky and fortunate that, I'm the driver's education teacher down here in Havana. I drive kids in a car. I have 2 or 3 classes. I drive kids in the afternoon. But I force myself to get in the hallways and, connect eyeball to eyeball and talk to kids and not try to get too overzealous with them because this is a different time for them right now. They're trying to kind of figure this all out. Yeah, they want to play and they want to do things, but I don't want to get too pressing with these guys. We're getting ready to go into XFL football in March and April, and it's going to be different and weird. And I think, like I've said this to Tim on the side, I think the social, emotional, and mental part of this is something that's a slippery slope, and we need to be very, very careful about it. And like you said, I haven't really listened to what you guys have been talking about, but I sense you guys have been talking about player development. And I think with player development, it's physical, sure. We're excited about some of these kids and how they're going to climb that ladder, but I think you need to be very, very careful with that social, emotional, mental stuff too.
Coach, from a standpoint of weather and field conditions, you guys and your conference, what's your thoughts on Friday nights, Saturdays, given the time of year it is? Maybe a Saturday's better at 1 o'clock to have better temperatures, and there's snow on your field right now. Concerns about that?
Well, I've got friends and coaches all over the state, and they're dealing with some of the same issues. Jim Morrow, for example, who was the coach at Harlem and who's now the coach at Belvedere. I'm assuming the Nick 10 is probably going to move some games to Saturday, and they've got some turf that they could play on. Jake Palmer, who is now the head Fisher Bunny, they're playing 4 games, and they're doing their games on Saturdays. So I'm in the prairie land, and we don't have a lot of turf. We got grass, and so we're going to have to figure it out. Hopefully, this snow will melt, and when that time comes, we'll cross that bridge. But at the same time, like right now, yesterday, I had a lengthy conversation with my athletic director, like, hey, just in case our snow doesn't melt and it's bad out there, what are we going to do and where can I go at to practice? And that's my main worry I have right now. But down the road, we don't have a lot of turf fields down here. So when you're in those situations in the lower middle part of the state, you get a little concerned or worried about it because this is uncharted territory.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like there's nothing else going on. You've got so many other sports going on or about to get going on, and you've got limited gym space, and it's going to be really, really tough.
It's crazy.
One of the things I want to ask you, Matt, is you mentioned how you've been fortunate and you've been able to stay in school with your kids during all this. How do you attempt to get those kids to understand the impact of this COVID thing? Certain, and let's face it, we're not going to lie, it's been a geographic thing. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Bigger cities are getting impacted a hell of a lot more than central, southern Illinois. And that's got to be tough for them because it's like, look, they look around them. They don't really know anyone that's got COVID or anything that's going on. So how are you able to keep them kind of on pace and say, look, this is what we're stuck. We've got to deal with it. It's a statewide thing. And, we don't see it here, but, that had to be very tough to deal with, I would imagine, for your kids and probably everyone in the community as well.
Yeah, no, at first it was challenging. It has been challenging. It's been tough. But then, we got pretty resilient, good kids down here in Havana, Illinois. And I think kids in general they're not stupid. They're smart. They know what's going on. They know that there's football and sports being played in Missouri and Indiana and, Wisconsin and whatever. And so our kids really haven't had a sour grapes attitude about it. They've been pretty good about it. And I literally just got done talking to, 3 or 4 of my running backs and was telling them about like, hey, here's when we're going to start handing out equipment and just be patient. I'll tell you next week. And I do that because I don't want to jump into their arena right now. They're playing basketball. But I did tell them, like, just remember, guys, listen, I said it was literally like a 15-second conversation. I just told them, I was like, hey, just make sure you understand that, between me and the basketball coach, I mentioned his name, Tyler, I was like, we're going to work together for you guys. There's not going to be any animosity with basketball and football and whatever. And then once they get started, I'm going to break it down to them like, hey, listen, number one, this is a game. Number two, we're going to have fun. But probably most important, the third thing is it's going to be safe. And I'm going to make sure everything I do, is a good, productive learning session for you. So I think our kids are going to have a good attitude about it. They're going to be excited. They're chomping at the bit. I mean, I got some guys that are really chomping at the bit, but I also have some kids that are kind of a little apprehensive. And this is going to be a good opportunity for them too.
One thing I think that you just said made me think, you have some kids playing basketball. I would think in the smaller schools, generally, you have more of those kids playing basketball that are going to play football, and it gives them a leg up to get the conditioning aspect in for you guys.
Yeah, it does. And, again, you want to have a good working relationship with your basketball coach and athletic director. I've always been a firm believer, like, in the summertime, I'm going to be doing weightlifting in the summer, but in a small school, kind of how we do it, how I've always done it. You do your football related activities at the end of July. You don't try to dip into the basketball stuff. I want kids to be excited about football at the end of July. My kids will get excited about football once we get out there. I don't need to sit there and bombard them and press them. And right now, these basketball kids, they're getting some different coaching that they're going to get from me, and they're getting different conditioning than they're going to get from me. And it's going to be fine. The one thing I've told these kids is nonchalantly, in the hallways, like, hey, just relax. Everything's going to be fine. We'll get back to you. You're going to be fine. Don't get too pressing with these kids. Again, it's that whole social emotional thing that it's a slippery slope, and I don't want to be too stressful on them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Joe?
Man, about going to the football aspect, up here, a lot of the coaches talk about, about officials and maybe the lack of them. And once we start having the crossover with baseball or with other sports, with the referees in basketball that do football, most of the referees in this state do multiple sports. Is there a concern down where you're at in Havana in your conference as far as officials are concerned?
Well, I know when Sam Knox sent out a kind of a union, State of the Union speech to the state of Illinois, that he has kind of said that could possibly be a problem. I have not specifically talked to my athletic director in terms of officials, but I know there's been some officials that have said, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to do it this in March or April. So we'll see how that goes. I know I watched on TV the other night, WJOL out of Peoria, Jim Matson. He followed a basketball official that did 3 games in one day. Started in the morning, went to an afternoon game, and then went to a night game in Washington, Illinois. These guys are humans too. And, you have to understand they're going to do what they want to do, and maybe they don't want to do it, and maybe we might have a shortage. We have been kind of told by our athletic director that be prepared for that. that could be a scenario down the road. But until that kind of happens, I guess we're going to be just kind of wait and see.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what people need to understand, and I think what's really interesting is you taking the Havana job. I mean, this is a school that goes back to playing football to like 1893. I mean, you talk about history. I mean, how appealing was that when you were looking at jobs, and just what really sold you on that community and taking over that specific position?
Well, there was several factors. I had some personal things kind of going on in my life, and in terms of just the location, it was close to my family. You know, it was close, about an hour and a half from my family. It's literally right down the road from Fisher, and it's right down the road from, you know, Rantoul, where I was living at. In terms of my DNA, I'm just better equipped to, you know, kind of be in charge and run my own program. It was really, really, really appealing to me that when I came into the interviewing process, I was able to talk to three guys that obviously were winners and leaders, and they told me that that's what they were looking for. And, you know, when you have an hour and 45-minute interview and it feels really good and the rapport is really good, that felt really good to me. It was an ideal situation, an ideal location. And then, you know, if you look at Havana on the western side of the state and kind of some of its history, it's nestled right on the river, the Illinois River. They've had a great tradition, long time ago, back in the late 70s and early 80s with basketball. They were really, really dominant in basketball. And then girls basketball, they've done really well. Football and boys basketball, and then you know, baseball here lately, they've kind of struggled a little bit. But the thing is they're not in a situation where they're co-oping anymore. They don't bring in a neighboring school and take their enrollment up to 3A and 4A and play Rochester in the first round. Right. In 4A football. Yep. And that was probably in the first 7 minutes of the interview. The superintendent and athletic director told me about that. So we got good kids. We got about 280 kids. And so the numbers will be fairly good. And at our conference, you know, that I can talk to you guys about also, it's a good football conference. And there's some games you can win if you're competitive and smart and you play hard. And just the landscape, I think, of the school and kind of where they're at in terms of the administration leadership, it's just a great place.
How do you sell yourself to those kids? What have you been able to tell them? And what is it about Matt Leng, and why should they play for you? How are you able to sell yourself to those kids?
Well, you know, I'll say this, you know, like one of the things I learned from Don Tanny at Lexington High School, whose son Alex just retired from the NFL and is now a coach for the Eagles. Don Tanny always told me to be very true and real with kids, because if you're not true and real with kids, they're going to see right through it. And so in my 7 or 8 contact days that I had with the kids at Havana, I just told them, I was like, listen, I'm going to be true and real with you. And the days of the grind, you know, the days of the grind are over. Okay. So if you want to be here for an hour and 45 minutes and we get things done, we'll get things done. If you want to be here for 2 hours and 30 minutes, we can do that. But we're going to work hard. We're going to work hard and we're going to have a lot of fun. And Havana football is going to be something that everybody's going to be excited about. And I've only got 2 rules, you know. Number 1, do the right thing. And number 2, be on time. So we're going to keep it simple. And it is what it is. Now they're in a situation too where they just come off a playoff appearance where they snuck into the playoffs at 5-4 and they got beat by Central A&M in round 1, and they're predominantly a passing team. So here you have this big, bald, boisterous, crazy man coming in here, and that's not necessarily me. But as the great Jerry Lana would say at Dakota, teach what you can coach and coach what you can teach. So I tell the kids that too. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to you. I'm going to punch you right in the eyes and tell you what I'm going to do, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to work at it. And so I just tell the kids that we're going to do that. We're going to work hard, and those are good life lessons. And, you know, through it all, we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to hopefully be really successful.
I got a question for you from one of our viewers out there on Facebook. There you go, Coach. is there a minimum number you need to have on your roster to play a game for safety concerns? Good luck from Joe LaPointe.
Well, and I think in every small school you want to have 10 to 15 kids in each class. And, if it's 1A football, you would like to have about 40 or 50 kids on the roster. I know down the road, talking to Jake Palmer, and Fisher has 180 kids, and he's taken that program to another level, I think, because they're a small school and they're competing very well with the Tri-Valleys of the world, the Fieldcrests of the world, and they're doing it with less kids. They have about 35 kids. I think realistically, to be safe for your total program, you want about 40 to 50 kids. We've got some landscape issues in our conference where we've had some teams kind of disintegrate or dissolve, and now they're going to 8-man football. And so I've had that conversation with my superintendent, and so that's for another discussion, but I would say probably 40 to 50 kids is what I want on the roster.
Yeah, fair enough. You mentioned 8-man. We're going to talk about it. It continues to grow. It looks like it's going to their numbers are going to be up again for this coming season. Can you see that continuing to grow and kind of from an IHSA standpoint? What do you do with it? I imagine if it continues to grow the way it has, you're going to have to make them part of your championship series, I would think.
Well, I'm talking a lot. What are your guys' thoughts on it? I have my own thoughts on it. What do you guys think? Have you guys talked about that, or are you guys waiting for me to show up?
No, we're waiting for you to show up, man. Come on, we know you better than that.
Well, go ahead. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
I just think up here, it may be some of the smaller schools, maybe the Catholic schools that are smaller might go to that or even think about that because of the competitive nature of the Catholic conferences. You got the bigger schools playing the smaller schools, and they may do that.
Yeah.
But I think if Edgy, you and Matt, you and Edgy know more about this than I do. It seems like it's more of a Southern Illinois type situation more than there's a Northern Illinois situation.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see, Matt, NUIC area. You seeing more and more of those schools starting to go 8-man. I think, Matt, it's you're an 11-man football guy. We all are. So there's that stigma out there. I just got to think in this era, everything we've gone through concussion gate. We've gone through all this stuff. Now we're going through a pandemic because that's something, guys, no one's really even talked about. What are the numbers going to look like this spring after, the freshman level, you had them and then you completely lost them. So can you get them back to play football in the spring when you had them ready to go in the fall or were planning on it? And how active were you during all this with those underclassmen? So there's a lot of questions there. I just look at it, Matt, and guys, as it's not ideal, but if you're still involved in football, aren't we at the point where we'd rather have kids involved doing 8-man versus not doing anything at all?
You said it perfectly. I'm not going to lie. My superintendent is a former college football player. My principal is an avid college football fan. All of the male role model guys in this building are football sports people. But there's about 3 or 4 people that make the decisions around here. And the number one guy is my superintendent. I specifically asked him this summer. I asked him while he's out there doing something with his son, who's a discus thrower for the University of Illinois, on a hot day in Havana, Illinois. And I asked him, I go, what's your thoughts on 8-man football? And he echoed your thoughts, Tim. Everybody wants 11-man football. But if you're in a situation, a scenario where you're faced with this newness or unsureness of what's going to happen, he's like, small towns and kids and high school people deserve something on Friday nights. They deserve that. And if we have to go to 8-man football, we'll cross that bridge and we'll do that. But for kids to be able to compete and do things, that is important. Okay. And you see it. It's just probably going to happen more and more. I don't know what the numbers are. I think there's maybe 38 8-man teams.
Yeah.
And yes, they do happen a little bit more in our area. Okay. But I think they're happening in the NUIC. I know they are.
Yep.
And so I got two things. I think, like, I'm concerned, like, what's the number going to be in terms of, like, how many are they going to let in? Number two, what's the number going to be? So in terms of, like, how big of a school can you be and still have 8-man?
Yeah.
And then, the third thing is how do you fit that in? Because that's going to happen. They're going to have to make a decision. How are you going to fit that into the IHSA and the championship series? Are you going to dissolve our classes and have 7A, 6A, 5A, 4A, and then 3A, 2A, 1A, 8-man? How are you going to do that?
Right.
They figure it out in Iowa and they play underneath the dome. I'm sure they'll figure it out in Illinois. But again, they've given themselves a buffer because right now they're just their own separate entity and they play a state championship over at Monmouth College. But it's gaining traction. It's something that's going to have to be addressed.
So during this pandemic, you've had time. I mean, besides hanging with your kids, and I'm sure there's been a lot of quality family time, which I think all of us on this show will admit that's been a positive during all this. Sure, they hate us and want to get rid of us now and are thrilled to have us back out covering football in March. What else were you able to do? Did a Matt Leng pick up any hobbies while in quarantine?
I did. This is a very slow process. Now, this is totally it's contradicting to what I'm about and what football coaches are about. Like, we want answers like right now, and we want to get things done right now.
Are you dancing ballet?
I am.
Are you needle pointing? Knitting sweaters? Come on, man.
Deal. I've gotten into miniature trains.
Okay.
For me and my son. So I want to create an HO train set down in my basement for me and my son and my daughter to kind of work on. But there's a couple things that are bothering me. Number one, it's very expensive.
Yes.
Number two, it's very time consuming.
Yes.
Number three, it's a game where you have to be very patient because you can't get it all done in one to do. You have to do it like over a period of time.
Yep.
And number four, you need to have really good eyes to put the train pieces together. And that's just with an HO track, I mean,
right.
If you go something smaller, it's even worse. So I don't know. I'm trying.
Right. Now, if it was just you playing with the trains, I'd be a little more nervous for you, but it sounds like fun.
It just kind of fell into my lap. And so let me put it this way. When you're going to Vandalia, Illinois to a train show, you might have some issues, but I went to train show in Vandalia, Illinois. And there's a lot of train shows in your neck of the woods too, guys. So I'll be coming your way.
Do you have a hat? Do you have the hat?
Not yet.
It's coming. I know what to buy you.
It's coming.
I know what to get you now.
But it's that, you know what? That and I'll just say this on a serious side. I mean, I love Havana. It's a small river town. There's not a lot to do. I mean, Havana is about 45 minutes from everywhere. Jacksonville, Springfield, Bloomington, Galesburg. So there's a lot of fishing that you can do.
Yep.
And there's a lot of walking that you can do. And those are things that I'm doing with my son and my kids. And I have access to the bowling alley in Havana and the gymnasium. So I'm trying to do those recreational activities also.
Awesome. Awesome. So good to see you, man.
Yes.
Like I said, this whole pandemic, it's been tough on everybody, let's face it. But, you take away football and you take away that from all of us, and it's been tough. So it's just great to have you back and great to see you. And I know all of us, we're thrilled you're back in coaching and down in Havana, and just keep up the great success. You have just gained a huge following for the Havana Ducks in 2021.
Yes.
Huge.
Listen, we're going to put that brand out there, man.
Remember all the gear you sold when you were at Fisher?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna beat that. We're gonna beat that.
Yeah, we got to put our order in Edge for one of those Havana Ducks T-shirts with their
How
logo
sweet is
on it.
that logo? Look at that logo.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, you'd wear that.
Yeah, the one back there. Yeah.
Hey, third and Lang. We're going to take that to the next level.
Third and Lang.
And it's just
There's the book. That's the first book title.
Yeah, you know, the I don't know, maybe the only coach in the state of Illinois that's coached bunnies and ducks.
There you go.
See, there it is already.
Go Ducks. Yep.
Already on board.
Gonna be some great football down here, guys. I can't wait. You know, we got a lot of work to do, but it's gonna be fun. You know, 1A football and 2A football. We got a lot of good programs down here. You know, and you know that Edge. You know, from the Brad Dixons at Camp Point and to Weekly at Central A&M and Ryan Knox at Athens and all these good coaches. I mean, if you want to get out of the South in 1A, those are the programs you got to go through, and that's just tough physical football. So we've got our work cut out for us, but we've got some good things coming up down the road in terms of our younger classes, and the numbers are good. So I know that's always that tricky thing, like how are your numbers in a small school? They're not bad. So we're going to see.
My friend, you are the best.
Yes. Good luck, Matt. Good luck.
You bet.
All right, that's going to do it. We're done for this week. For the coach, Joe Rodeghero, for Dave Dwyer, I'm Edgy Tim, and for Matt Leng. Also want to thank, George tried to jump in. We'll get George hopefully straightened out next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next Wednesday, 6:30 right here. And don't forget, starting March 18th, we are back on 1340 WJOL on Thursday nights. So looking forward to get going for football season. All right, everybody. Thanks. Have a great